She drove a drunk stranger home days later. The grateful millionaire returned, confessing love. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our main character. The rain came down in sheets that night, drumming against the windshield as Mia Torres tightened her grip on the steering wheel. Midnight in downtown Seattle was no place for a woman driving alone, but delivering one last ride meant gas money for the week. The wipers fought to keep up as streetlights smeared into gold and gray streaks. She almost missed him at first, a man stumbling near the curb, soaked through, trying to wave down a taxi that never came. His suit clung to him like a ruin, one shoe half off, his phone shattered in the gutter. Mia hesitated. She'd promised herself not to pick up strangers again, not after that last terrifying night, but something about the way he leaned against the lamppost, shivering and lost, made her pulse twist with pity. She rolled down the window just a crack. "Hey, you okay?" The man blinked at her, rain dripping from his hair. I just need to get home," he slurred softly. Cab didn't come. His voice wasn't aggressive, just tired. She sighed, unlocking the door. "All right, come on, before you drown out there." He slid into the passenger seat, water pooling on the floor mat. The faint scent of whiskey hit her nose, sharp but not unbearable. She glanced at him from the corner of her eye, expensive watch, cufflinks, no wedding ring. Not the usual kind of drunk she saw outside bars. "Where do you live?" she asked. He blinked, fumbled with his wallet, and handed her a black card. "Penthouse, Crescent Tower. Just drive." She raised an eyebrow. "Sure, Mr. Crescent Tower." He gave a low laugh that turned into a cough. The drive took 20 minutes through the storm. He mumbled apologies halfway there, calling himself an idiot, saying he didn't mean to ruin anyone's night. She said nothing. When they reached the building, a glass giant piercing the clouds, she had to half carry him through the lobby while the night guard gawked. The man pressed the elevator button like muscle memory, swaying slightly. "You don't have to come up," he muttered. "Yeah, well, if I leave you here, you'll probably fall asleep in the hallway." Inside the penthouse, lights flickered on, revealing walls of art and a skyline that looked like another planet. She guided him to the couch, pulling a blanket from the armrest. "There, you're home. Don't choke on your own regrets." He smiled faintly, eyes half closed. "You're kind. Nobody's kind anymore." She didn't answer. Instead, she wrote a note on the counter. "You're safe. Don't drink and drive." Then she slipped out quietly, her reflection vanishing in the glass door as thunder rolled above. Back in her old Corolla, she noticed something in the passenger seat, a silver keychain engraved with the initials EC. She frowned, tucking it in her pocket. Just another lost item from a stranger she'd probably never see again. But fate, as she was about to learn, had other plans. The next morning, the rain had stopped, leaving Seattle wrapped in a thin silver mist. Mia Torres was back behind the wheel, hair tied up, coffee in hand, the faint hum of the engine filling the silence. She was running late for her shift at the auto wash where she worked part-time. Her phone buzzed with reminders about rent, about her mother's doctor appointment, about life that never slowed down. The night before felt unreal now, like a movie she had dreamed. She thought about the drunk man she had helped, the heavy silence of his apartment, and the silver keychain she had found on her passenger seat. It was engraved with the initials EC, polished and heavy, like something that belonged to someone important. She told herself she would drop it off later at the front desk of that building, but deep down, she doubted she would ever see him again. By noon, she was soaked again, not from rain but from the spray of hoses and soap. Cars lined up, music played from a small radio, and Mia's arms ached. "You look like you fought a hurricane," her coworker joked. She smiled weakly. "Feels about right." Hours passed. At sunset, she stopped by her mother's small apartment across town. Her mother was pale but smiling, knitting by the window. "How was work, honey?" she asked. "Long," Mia said softly, kissing her forehead. She made dinner out of canned soup and toast. As her mother dozed off, Mia stared out the window. The city lights shimmered like tiny promises. She did not know that across the skyline, in a glass tower penthouse, someone else was staring at those same lights, remembering her. Ethan Carter woke up late that morning with a pounding headache and a note sitting on his counter. The words were simple: "You are safe. Do not drink and drive." He had no idea how he had gotten home. His security team said a woman had driven him, but she had refused to give her name. Ethan frowned, rubbing his temples. There was something about that voice he half remembered, gentle but firm. He looked down at the couch and noticed the faint scent of lavender. His assistant, Claire, found him later that day in the office, uncharacteristically quiet. "Rough night?" she asked, setting down his schedule. "You could say that," he murmured. He was supposed to attend a charity event, but instead he sat at his desk, scrolling through building security footage. He watched the woman helping him through the lobby small frame, brown hair pulled into a bun, oversized jacket, eyes focused. There was no audio, but her lips moved when she spoke to the guard. He zoomed in, reading them slowly. He is safe now. Something about it hit him hard. It was not pity. It was gratitude mixed with shame. For all his success, he had become a man who needed rescuing. Days passed. Ethan could not shake it off. He called the front desk, asked for the driver's name, but she had left no contact. "A note, sir, that was all." He found the car company's record, an old Corolla registered under her name, Mia Torres. That night, for the first time in years, he drove himself. The rain returned, light and rhythmic, tapping the hood as he pulled into the small auto wash where she worked. She was there, wiping down a truck under the floodlights, humming to herself. Her clothes were damp, her hair curling at the edges. He got out slowly, the world narrowing to the sound of the water and his heartbeat. She looked up, eyes widening. "You," she breathed. He smiled, awkward but sincere. "Me, the guy you saved from his own stupidity." She blinked, not sure if this was real. "You remember?" "Enough to know I owe you." He extended the keychain she had left behind. "And this belongs to you now, at least until I can repay the debt." Mia shook her head, laughing nervously. "It was nothing, really." "No," Ethan said softly. "It was everything." The hum of the car wash faded, replaced by the quiet weight of his words. For the first time, the billionaire and the girl who had driven him home stood under the same weak streetlight, equals, connected by one small act of kindness that neither of them could forget. The following week moved like a quiet tide neither of them expected. Ethan Carter had returned to his world of meetings and deadlines, but something inside him had shifted. He found himself glancing at the small note he had kept from that night, the one written in simple handwriting on a diner receipt. "You are safe. Do not drink and drive." It sat on his desk beside his laptop, a reminder that kindness could come from the most unexpected places. Across town, Mia Torres tried to pretend her life had not changed at all. She scrubbed windshields, smiled at customers, and made grocery lists in her head. But she could not shake the memory of the man who had appeared out of nowhere at her workplace, holding out her keychain like it was treasure. Her coworkers teased her about it for days. "Your mystery man drives a car worth more than this whole place," one said. She rolled her eyes, but every night when she closed her eyes, she could still see the way he had looked at her, not like a rich man pitying someone beneath him, but like someone seeing her for the first time. 3 days later, a black SUV stopped outside the auto wash again. Mia froze mid-swipe as the door opened and Ethan stepped out, this time in jeans and a gray hoodie instead of a suit. "Before you panic," he said, hands raised, "I am not here to cause trouble. I just have an offer." She laughed nervously. "That sounds exactly like trouble." He smiled. "Maybe, but hear me out. I run a foundation called the Carter Fund. We work with small local projects, helping people get back on their feet. I would like you to come work with us." Her rag slipped from her hand. "Me? I wash cars, Mr. Carter." "Ethan," he corrected gently. "And yes, you help people. That is what I need in my team." She hesitated, torn between disbelief and suspicion. "Why me?" He looked down, his voice quieter. "Because you helped me when you did not have to. Because you reminded me what it means to care." She stared at him for a long moment before shaking her head. "I do not belong in your world." "Maybe my world needs someone like you," he said. The words hung between them like something fragile. Later that night, Mia sat in her small kitchen with her mother, explaining the offer. Her mother smiled weakly, her hands trembling around a cup of tea. "Sweetheart, you have always had this heart that gives, even when it hurts. Maybe it is time someone saw that." Mia bit her lip. "What if it is a mistake?" "Then it is a brave one." her mother said softly. The next morning, she stood in front of Carter Group's glass building, feeling wildly out of place in her plain blouse and borrowed shoes. The receptionist gave her a polite smile and directed her to the 32nd floor. When the elevator doors opened, Ethan was already waiting. "You came," he said, surprised but clearly pleased. "I said I would think about it," she replied. "Well, I thought." He grinned. "Welcome to the team." He led her through a bright workspace filled with people planning outreach programs. He introduced her as the person who reminded me why we started this foundation. Every eye turned toward her, but instead of judgment, she saw curiosity and warmth. By noon, she was learning to input data, plan deliveries, and answer calls. It was overwhelming, but in a good way. As the day ended, Ethan appeared by her desk with 2 coffees. "For surviving your first day," he said. She smiled. "Barely. That is the best kind of survival," he joked. They shared a quiet laugh. Outside the tall windows, the rain had started again, soft and steady. Mia looked at the city she thought she knew and realized it looked different from up here. Not smaller, not bigger, just closer. Ethan watched her for a moment, then said quietly, "You really have no idea what you did that night, do you?" She turned to him, puzzled. "I just drove someone home." He shook his head with a faint smile. "You saved a life, Mia. And maybe you started to change mine." Oh. Weeks passed, and what began as a simple favor slowly turned into something neither of them could name. Mia adjusted to her new role at the Carter Foundation with quiet determination. She learned fast, often staying late to organize files or deliver supplies herself instead of assigning volunteers. Ethan noticed. He would find excuses to pass by her desk, pretending to check schedules while secretly watching her work. The office felt warmer when she was around. One rainy afternoon, they were both at the loading dock, helping unload boxes for a community drive. "You really do not have to do this," he said as she hauled another box into the truck. "You are the boss," she teased. "You should be the one not doing this." He grinned. "Touché. But I think I like seeing you prove me wrong." She rolled her eyes, but her smile lingered. After the event, they drove together to drop off donations. The sky glowed soft orange over the city, and for a rare moment, Ethan allowed himself to forget who he was supposed to be. He told her about his father, the man who built Carter Group from nothing, and how losing him too early had turned Ethan into someone obsessed with control. Success stopped feeling like success, he admitted quietly. It just became survival. Mia listened without judgment. "Maybe you needed to remember what it is like to be saved," she said softly. Her words stayed with him long after she left that evening. In the following days, rumors began swirling online. A photo had surfaced of Ethan and Mia unloading boxes together, her hair tied back, his sleeves rolled up. The caption read, "CEO finds new love in the warehouse." It spread fast. At first, Mia laughed it off, but by lunchtime, her coworkers were whispering. By the end of the week, a gossip site had printed her full name. She walked into the office Monday morning to find the receptionist avoiding her eyes. Ethan met her halfway, his expression dark. "I am sorry," he said. "I did not see it coming this fast." "You do not need to apologize for existing," she replied sharply, but her voice trembled. "People will think I am using you. They already do." He shook his head. "Let them think what they want. We know the truth." "Do we?" she asked quietly, stepping back. "Because I am not sure I do anymore." She left before he could answer. That night, she sat at her kitchen table, staring at the headlines on her phone. Her mother reached over and turned it off. "If the world cannot understand kindness without twisting it, that is their problem," she said softly. Mia smiled faintly, but her eyes were glassy. The next morning, she called the foundation, asking for a few days off. Ethan tried to reach her, but every message went unanswered. He spent those days pacing his office, replaying every moment, every word. Claire, his assistant, finally said what he refused to admit. "You are not just worried about bad press. You are worried about losing her." He looked up, realizing it was true. On the 4th night, Ethan drove to her neighborhood. The rain had returned, steady and cold, as if echoing their first meeting. He saw her through the window of a small cafe, alone, nursing a cup of coffee. When he stepped inside, she looked up, surprised but not angry. "You should not be here," she said. "Neither should you," he replied. "Hiding from something you did right." she sighed. It does not matter. Your world and mine do not mix. Maybe they are not supposed to, he said softly, but I want to try anyway. For a long moment, they just looked at each other, the air thick with everything unsaid. Then Mia stood, pulling her jacket tight. I need time, Ethan. He nodded. I will wait. As she walked away into the rain, he whispered almost to himself. You already waited long enough to find me. The door closed behind her, and the quiet that followed felt heavier than the storm outside. 2 weeks passed since that night at the cafe, and Seattle moved on as if nothing had happened, but neither Mia nor Ethan could. The headlines died down, the gossip faded, yet the silence between them remained louder than ever. Mia returned to the Carter Foundation quietly, determined to focus only on work. She kept her conversations brief, her smiles polite, her eyes avoiding his. Ethan respected her distance, though it was tearing him apart. He watched her from his office window as she loaded boxes or helped volunteers, and every time she laughed with someone else, his chest tightened. One afternoon, while reviewing reports, he found something that made him pause. The budget proposal for a new community initiative had been hand-edited by Mia, her handwriting filling the margins with small notes. Add meal plan for seniors, extra blankets for shelters, more focus on family recovery. Her words were practical, kind, and thoughtful. He realized then that she had never stopped giving, even when the world had turned its back on her. The next day, he visited her workspace unannounced. You did this, he said, holding up the report. It was a team effort, she replied without looking up. You made it human, he said softly. She hesitated, finally meeting his eyes. That is what the foundation is supposed to be, right? It is what I forgot it should be, he admitted. She stared at him for a long moment before nodding slightly. Then maybe we both needed to remember. That evening, Mia walked home beneath a light drizzle, lost in thought. When she reached her apartment, she found an envelope taped to her door. Inside was a simple invitation, embossed with the Carter Foundation logo. The words read, Community Gala, honoring those who make a difference. Her name was printed beneath the list of honorees. Her heart skipped. The event was that weekend. She tried to tell herself it was a formality, a PR move, but deep down she knew Ethan had a hand in it. Saturday arrived, and she stood outside the ballroom in a borrowed navy dress, clutching her purse like armor. The chandeliers inside glimmered, and the hum of conversation filled the air. When she stepped in, heads turned, but not with judgment, only curiosity. Near the stage, Ethan stood in a tailored suit, speaking with reporters. When his eyes met hers, he froze for a beat, then smiled. The ceremony began. One by one, honorees were called, until finally, the host said her name. For reminding us that compassion still drives real change, Mia Torres. Applause filled the room as she walked up, heart pounding. Ethan stepped forward to present the award, his voice steady but his eyes soft. Sometimes it takes one act of kindness to remind us all what humanity means, he said, glancing at her. For me, that act came from someone who thought she was just giving a stranger a ride home. The crowd fell silent, realizing what he meant. Mia's eyes widened slightly, the air between them, electric. He handed her a small glass plaque engraved with her name, then leaned closer, whispering, You changed my life, Mia. She blinked rapidly, tears threatening. You did not have to do this, she whispered back. Yes, I did, he said quietly, because you deserve to be seen the way you see others. The applause swelled again as she stepped down, her pulse still racing. After the ceremony, she slipped out to the balcony for air. The night sky stretched dark and endless, city lights flickering below. A familiar voice broke the silence behind her. Every time it rains, I think about that night, Ethan said. How one choice changed everything. She turned, smiling softly. You still owe me gas money, you know. He laughed, the tension easing. I will pay in something better. He stepped closer, rain misting in the wind, and for the first time, there was no distance, no fear, just understanding. When he took her hand, it felt natural, inevitable. So what now? She asked quietly. He looked out at the city. Now, he said, we start driving forward, together. And as the rain began to fall again, gentle and forgiving, they stood side by side, two hearts that had once crossed by accident, now finally moving in the same direction. In the days after the gala, something in Mia's world began to feel lighter. People at the foundation looked at her differently now, not with pity, but with respect. She worked side by side with Ethan again, and though their words were careful, their eyes spoke in quiet understanding. The air between them was no longer heavy with what could not be said. Instead, it hummed with what might be. One morning, Ethan stopped by her desk with 2 coffees. "You drink yours with cream, right?" he asked. She raised an eyebrow. "You remember?" "I remember everything," he said with a half smile. "You drove me home that night, remember?" She laughed softly. "You were lucky I did not leave you in that puddle." He grinned. "I think about that sometimes. What if you had not stopped?" Her expression softened. "Then maybe neither of us would be here." It was true. Every part of their story had unfolded from that single moment of compassion. Weeks passed and their rhythm deepened: early mornings, planning outreach programs, late nights reviewing reports, sometimes staying after everyone else had gone home just to talk. He told her about his late father again, about how building Carter Group had cost him more than money. She told him about her mother's health improving, since the foundation had helped cover her medication. "You know," Ethan said one evening as they packed up, "the foundation was meant to fix things, but it was missing its heart until you showed up." She looked down, cheeks warm. "Do not say things like that, or I might start believing them." "Good," he said, "because they are true." But just when everything seemed steady, the past came knocking. One afternoon, Claire rushed into Ethan's office, pale. "The board wants an emergency meeting," she said. "They saw the speech. They are questioning your judgment." Ethan frowned. "My judgment? For recognizing someone who saved my life?" "They think it looks unprofessional," she said carefully. "They are threatening to pull funding from the foundation." Ethan stood, jaw tight. "Then they can have my seat. I will not run a company that punishes kindness." He walked out before she could respond. That evening, he drove to Mia's apartment. She opened the door, surprised. "Ethan? What happened?" He looked tired but calm. "The board wants me to resign." Her eyes widened. "Because of me? Because I reminded them that people matter more than profit." She shook her head, heart pounding. "You cannot throw away your company for me." "It is not for you," he said quietly. "It is because of you. You showed me who I want to be." She stood there, struggling for words. Finally she whispered, "I never wanted to cost you everything." He took her hands gently. "You did not cost me anything. You gave me back something I had lost." The next morning, the headlines read, "Carter resigns from board to lead community initiative." Some called it reckless, others called it brave, but Ethan did not care. For the first time in years, he felt free. A week later, he and Mia launched a new project under the foundation, a citywide program called SafeRide, inspired by the night they met. It offered free rides home for anyone too tired, too lost, or too broken to make it alone. Reporters asked where the idea came from. Ethan smiled, looking at Mia. "From a stranger who once stopped when no one else did." The applause was loud, but for him, the real moment was when Mia turned to him afterward, eyes shining. "You really did it," she said. "No," he replied softly. "We did it." That night, as they stood under the awning of the foundation's building watching the rain fall again, she reached into her pocket and pulled out the old silver keychain. "You left this behind once," she said, placing it in his hand. "Now it belongs where it always should have." He looked down, recognizing the initials engraved there. "E.C.," he murmured. "Ethan Carter?" She smiled. "Ethan and compassion," she said. "You can choose which one means more." He laughed quietly, closing his fingers around it. Maybe both. For the first time in a long time, the city did not feel cold. The storm that had started their story had finally turned into something softer, a reminder that even the smallest act of kindness can rewrite an entire life. Several months passed, and SafeRide became more than just a project. It became a movement. What began as a small city initiative spread across states, funded not by investors chasing profit but by people who had once been helped themselves. News outlets called it a revolution in kindness, and for once, Ethan Carter felt proud of something that had nothing to do with money. He spent most days working alongside Mia, meeting volunteers, visiting shelters, and personally thanking the drivers who made it all possible. Every night, they returned to the office, exhausted but happy, their laughter echoing down empty halls. Yet as their bond deepened, something unspoken began to linger between them, a quiet tension neither dared to name. One evening, after a long day of travel to a newly opened branch, they stopped at a small diner on the outskirts of town. The rain was light. the neon sign outside flickering like a heartbeat. Ethan sat across from Mia, stirring his coffee absently. "You know," he said softly, "when I first met you, I thought you were just another reminder of how broken I was." She raised an eyebrow, half amused. "That is a strange way to thank someone." He smiled faintly. "I mean it in the best way. You did not try to fix me. You just treated me like a person worth saving." Her expression softened. "Everyone is worth saving, Ethan. Even me?" he asked quietly. She hesitated. "Especially you." The silence that followed was heavy but not uncomfortable. Outside, a truck passed, its headlights painting them in brief gold. Ethan leaned forward slightly. "Mia, I need to tell you something." Her heart quickened. "What is it?" He looked nervous for once, like the confident CEO had been replaced by the man she met that rainy night. "After everything, I realize that I do not just want to work beside you. I want to be with you, for real." She froze, searching his face. "Ethan, you do not have to say that out of gratitude." "This is not gratitude," he said firmly. "It is love." The words hung in the air, simple and terrifying. Mia looked down at her hands, trembling slightly. "I never thought this was where kindness would lead." "Neither did I," he admitted, "but maybe it was supposed to." Before she could reply, a flash outside drew their attention. Camera flashes, then voices. A group of reporters had somehow found them, shouting questions about the former CEO and his mystery woman. Ethan stood quickly, shielding her from the glare. "Let us go," he said. They slipped out the back door into the rain, running through puddles to his car. Once inside, they sat catching their breath, the tension replaced by adrenaline and laughter. "You still attract chaos," she said between gasps. "And you still save me from it," he replied. The drive back was quiet, but their hands brushed once on the console and stayed there. That night, as he dropped her off at her apartment, he said softly, "I will understand if you need time to think." She nodded slowly. "You always give me that, Ethan. Time, space. But maybe I am done running from what I already know." His eyes searched hers, and for the first time, she leaned forward and kissed him. It was not dramatic, not cinematic, just real, warm, and certain. When they pulled apart, she whispered, "You taste like rain." He smiled. "You feel like home." The city around them was quiet, the kind of quiet that holds new beginnings. Over the next few weeks, they kept their relationship private, focusing on the foundation. But everyone could see the difference, the way he smiled more, the way she laughed easier. Together, they were proof that empathy could build empires stronger than any company. And on nights when the rain returned, they would drive without a destination, windows down, the city lights blurring past. Two people who had once met by accident now choosing, again and again, to stay. The following months felt like a quiet sunrise for both of them. Ethan and Mia had found a rhythm that felt almost effortless, built on mutual respect and quiet laughter, rather than grand gestures. The SafeRide program continued to grow, expanding to new cities, and every time Ethan gave a speech, he always mentioned the same line. It all started with a single act of kindness. Mia would smile from the sidelines, knowing it was not just a slogan but a truth that had rewritten both of their lives. Yet success came with its shadows. As the foundation's influence grew, so did the scrutiny. One afternoon, Claire entered Ethan's office, her face pale. "There is trouble, Ethan," she said, placing a file on his desk. "Someone leaked internal documents suggesting we misused donation funds." Ethan frowned. "That is impossible. Every transaction is clean." "I know," she said, "but the press will not wait for proof. They are already calling it a scandal." Within hours, social media erupted. Headlines questioned his integrity, accusing him of using the foundation as a cover for personal gain. Mia found out when her phone began buzzing non-stop. She rushed to the office, where reporters had already gathered outside. Inside, Ethan sat in silence, reading statement drafts prepared by the PR team. "Ethan," she said breathlessly, "tell me this is not real." He looked up, his eyes calm but weary. "It is not, but truth moves slower than gossip." "Then let us fight it," she said. "We will show them the proof." He hesitated. "It is not that simple. Someone set this up carefully. They doctored records, used fake accounts. If we go public too fast, it will look defensive." "Then what are we supposed to do?" she asked, frustration breaking through. Wait, he exhaled. Sometimes that is the hardest fight. The next days were brutal. Donations froze, partners pulled back, and the board considered dissolving SafeRide to protect their name. Mia watched Ethan hold press conferences with calm composure, refusing to attack anyone, only repeating that the foundation would survive because truth always does. But behind closed doors, she saw the toll it took: the sleepless nights, the empty coffee cups, the way his hands shook when he thought no one was looking. One night, as he sat alone in the empty office, she walked in quietly. "You cannot keep carrying this alone," she said. He looked up, tired. "I started this. I should be the one to end it." "You did not start this," she said firmly. "You built something good. That scares people who only know power through fear." He met her gaze, the walls finally breaking. "What if they take everything, Mia? What if I lose it all again?" She stepped closer. "Then you will still have me." The words came out soft but steady, and for the first time that week, he smiled small, real, grateful. A few days later, a breakthrough came. Claire traced the forged documents back to a rival foundation, whose director had been competing with Ethan for funding. The evidence was undeniable. Within hours, the story flipped. The news cleared their name, calling Ethan's composure remarkably dignified under false accusations. Donations poured back in double. That evening, the foundation held a small celebration. As the team cheered, Ethan found Mia by the balcony, looking out at the city lights. "You saved me again," he said. She turned, shaking her head. "No, you saved yourself by staying true." He laughed softly. "You sound like the voice I did not know I needed." "Maybe I am," she said, smiling. "Or maybe I am just reminding you who you were before the world told you to be perfect." He took her hand gently. "Do you know what I realized through all this?" "What?" she asked. "That strength does not come from standing alone. It comes from knowing someone will stand with you." She squeezed his hand. "Then you are finally learning." The night breeze carried the faint sound of rain against glass, and for a moment, the world outside disappeared. They stood together, two souls who had been tested and found not broken, but whole. Spring arrived in Seattle with soft rain and streets lined with blooming cherry trees. Months had passed since the scandal, and the foundation had not only survived but thrived. SafeRide now operated in over 30 cities. Its logo, a silver keychain with intertwined initials, recognized as a symbol of second chances. Ethan Carter no longer cared about the title of CEO. He cared about impact, about stories, about the quiet ways people changed each other. Mia Torres, once the girl who worked 2 jobs to keep her mother alive, was now the foundation's program director. She had grown into her confidence, leading with the same compassion that had once driven her to stop for a stranger in the rain. One morning, Ethan walked into her office holding a folder. "There is something I want you to see," he said. She looked up, curious. Inside were photographs of SafeRide drivers across the country, each holding a sign that read, "Thank you, Mia." Her throat tightened. "You did all this?" "They did," he said softly. "They wanted you to know that one act of kindness can start an entire chain." She smiled through tears. "I just did what anyone would have done." "No," he said gently. "You did what no one else did." That evening, they hosted an anniversary gala for the foundation. The ballroom glowed with warm light, filled with volunteers, donors, and people whose lives had been changed by SafeRide. Ethan took the stage, his speech simple but heartfelt. "We started this because one person believed that helping a stranger still matters. Tonight, we celebrate not money, not numbers, but kindness itself." When he stepped down, he looked at Mia, his gaze steady. Later, as the guests danced and laughed, he found her outside on the terrace, the city spread beneath them like a sea of stars. "You disappeared," he said, approaching her. She smiled. "Just needed a moment. Crowds still make me nervous." "You stood in front of 1,000 people tonight and inspired them," he reminded her. "I think you will be fine." She laughed softly, the sound blending with the distant hum of traffic. Then he took a small box from his pocket. "What is that?" she asked, her heart skipping. "Something I should have given you a long time ago." He opened it to reveal the same silver keychain from that first night, now attached to a delicate ring. Her eyes widened. "Ethan." "This started with a drive home," he said quietly. "But somewhere along the way, it became the journey I never want to end. Marry me, Mia." Tears filled her eyes. but her smile broke through like sunlight. "Are you sure? I still talk too much. I still forget my keys." "Then I will always have a reason to come find you," he said, smiling. She laughed through her tears. "Yes. 1,000 times yes." The applause that followed came from the guests who had quietly gathered by the doorway, witnessing the moment. But for Mia and Ethan, the world had narrowed to just them. Weeks later, they were married in a small ceremony at the city garden, surrounded by flowers and the people they had helped. Claire gave a speech, joking that no GPS could have predicted this route. Even the rain showed up for them, gentle and familiar, like a blessing. As they shared their first dance under a canopy of lights, Ethan whispered, "Do you ever think about that night?" Mia nodded. "Every time it rains." He smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Then I hope it rains forever." She laughed, resting her head against his chest as the music swelled. The camera of life pulled back slowly, two people who had met by accident, who had chosen again and again to see the good in each other, now standing where kindness had led them. Because sometimes, love does not arrive in grand gestures or perfect timing. Sometimes, it begins with a small decision on a rainy night, a heartbeat of compassion that changes everything.